That's a mess. Screw it. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Testing, testing, testing. All right. We're going to jump right in it today. We'll start with the NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ here is inside of a pretty big range, in my opinion. Um, from Smart Money Capital standpoint, I believe that this was the major structure low, which held, and this is the high point. And as you see, we've been bouncing in between that range. Um, from your basic trend standpoint, you could say that this was a, higher low, bull break. Then you have the lower high, lower low type deal. Um, but then you have no change in the way up. And the reason why I was looking for maybe something else when it comes to like market structure was because like this just kept on happening where I'm just getting faked out and not really sure um um you know in certain scenarios in the market, because it just seems like just any little lower high, lower low, it could be one candle, it could be five candles. It's just it's too much of a call it how you see it type deal. So I personally like this a little bit better, where it gives me, an idea of where the most important part of the ranges are, how they're established, and then I can say to myself, okay, I have a bias a certain way, um, and if I'm counter trend trading, then I know that I have to be like quicker with it. You know, like for example, if I'm going to shop this this bull break a bear break underneath the 50-day here down to the lows, it's a spot there where I know I have to be quick on the trigger. Um, but for me, I saw this lower low, and I got a little bit beat up on the way up here. Um, and I'm just like, wait, what the heck? You know, what happened to the day? Where's the daily trend? Back to the upside. Doesn't have to do that, but you know what I'm saying. Like, you just everything that I was learning or learned just wasn't really making sense. So I was like, I need to touch it up a little bit and still use everything else. Um, Up here comes the dog. Hold on. Betty, go lay down. Go lay down. Come on. Go lay down. Go lay down. Come on. Go lay down. Go lay down. finally get started and the dogs wake up. Shocker. Shocker. Okay. So based off of that, we still have our key points. Like this high was a key point still. Um, just based off of just pure knowledge. But we know that because of this range here, um, it's a spot there where this is all kind of a range with I mean technically it should be a with a slightly bull bias here because based off of some of these concepts, like there hasn't really been a real change in character. So at this point, we do have this level set here, and like this is the type of stuff that would throw me off, right? Like for example, first we have this trend change, lower high, lower low trend change, which basically leads to not much of anything. Um, and then you even have this break of structure here, like you have the break of this last lower high up here, right? And you would think, oh, that's a bull break of an important level, um, and that's just not the case either. Like this is not a very important level. This is just within the grander scheme of things. So even though yes, this could be definitely liquidity grab, um, but if a lot of traders who got in here put their stops here, you know, maybe their stops are a little bit too tight. We zoom into the hourly here. You can see that we had quite the range here. The bear break on Friday, little back test here. I'm assuming this back test, came pretty damn close to that level and pulled back was because of all the fear that was potentially in the market on Friday. Um, when fear is out and about, then the levels act a little bit more precise. So you had a little rinky dink one here. And then for the patient trader, you had it right here. And now we're back here again, which is interesting. But from an hourly perspective, I would have to say that we're bearish since we broke bearish out of the structure. And I mean, bulls really need to go ahead and break this level here to change that. Unless we, get another leg lower, and then that could change things a little bit. But yeah, bearish on the Qs, and then same thing with SPY. I don't have it bricked out as well. I don't know why. Or I have it on the daily, that's why. So same thing, very similar chart. And you could see that on QQQ, like this chart's a bit different because you could see that we got to the very top of the range, but we didn't close above it. So, that's insightful. but a pretty nice bounce today. And again, if this was like, yes, this was the highs here. This was a double top high and a bull break. So on a lot of people were looking along on this little back test here for sure. Made a lot of sense. It was a little tricky. Got a little bit of a bounce, but didn't fell through. You can see that it acted much better as resistance here than support. Came back down to where? Down to the lows here. So we had this super low drop. We had the break of new structure, or we got a higher high. All right, par for the course. And so on and so forth. But if you see this little lower high, lower low, you might be like, okay, this is bearish now. Right? And that's the camp I was in. I was like, oh, this is bearish now. Looking for monthly consolidation, yada yada. Maybe we see a little bit of a weekly bounce. But I did not expect that. So, but if I was in the camp of, SMC, which is just a little bit more of a just not so fixated on every little higher low, higher high. Like it's more about the bigger picture structure, which allows you to have a bias without being back and forth so damn much. But you can see that until the structure gets cracked, it would be a bull bias, right? So buying down here wouldn't have been the worst idea in the world. It wouldn't have been at all. If you go to the hourly time frame, you might be able to see like some sort of like pattern or something. And there was a lot of other stocks that were down at important levels that could have been really nice buys, like Tesla. So you had this huge low here. Do a little bit of a bounce here. Yet another bounce here. Yet another bounce here. So you basically have a triple bottom here. So if you're patient, you get a triple bottom here with a bull break. And that in itself is a pretty strong sign for at least a short-term bounce. And knowing that this was the big leg down, you could easily go ahead and say that this level right here was a very important level. We saw it prior. You could see it was trying to be resistance here, support, 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 support. So yeah, you'd be looking to take off some here, if not all of it. All right. So from an hourly time frame, we have a bear bias. Overall time frame, we have a bull bias. So if you're talking about from a day trading perspective, it would make sense to still stay bearish today because you're usually using the hourly time frame. From a bigger picture standpoint, you probably want to still be bullish here. So it's kind of tricky now because you have conflicting trends on the hourly and the daily. Let's check out where QQQ and SPY cash market is compared to. So right in the middle for SPY. And right smack in the middle for QQQ. Dow Jones. So Dow Jones is actually the strongest comparable to SPY and QQQ. As you can see that like it didn't even get down to the bottom structure here, this October 10th level. And now it's bouncing and it actually got to close above this level too. So, and this is no surprise here with you have the bull break here, then you know this is a level of interest, but not the end of the world if we don't, you know, you do get this higher high ho though. So it does actually get a little bit tricky because you can make a case that this was the range. You get a higher high. This candle, you would have to assume that this candle sets the high here. Even though there are some things that say that like there has to be a sweep for a high to be set, but that tends to get a little bit confusing. But if it turned to that, then you actually did get a break here. You get your close underneath the level, back test, then back over. So I think that this is where nuance is really needed because you do have the break here, and you say to yourself, well, they should be getting down here, and they don't get down there, and then they get back over the level here, the nice strong close. So that, to me, is insightful. Man, it's making it a little laggy. Jesus. All right, we have XLF gapping up here, so that's intriguing. This is the banks. I was looking for a play in WFC Wells Fargo, but didn't really pull back as much as I wanted to. But we have a gap up open slightly on XLF, so there is some strength in the banks, which means that there's not like complete fear overtaking the market. And then we also have a potential nice open for XLV, which is the healthcare sector. And this is a tricky one. This is a tricky one because we have this sideways range here. And you have this hold over the level with the bull break, which is very strong, right? But you have to call it for what it is. This is a sideways structure. You can call this institutional, right? The bull break to even give it more confidence. So, cracking the structure is a big deal, right? So when you get down here and they try to hold the high here, and then they crack under it here, you could say to yourself, "Oh man, that's super bearish." But you have to remember that this structure is still here. So it does crack that, and then it does hit the value area high of this level here and bounces off of that. So it's definitely a tricky one. I mean, this is the high of the structure, but it's definitely over the meat and potatoes of the structure. As you see, the meat and potatoes of the structure was right here. POC value area high. So for me, this one's kind of hard to gauge because technically speaking, we did break structure here, which is definitely, in my opinion, a change of character. I think there's a chance that maybe we just come back here, we reclaim that structure, and then go, because we never back tested the structure here. We never got the back test, so this could be a failure, a save, a back test, and then up and away for XLV. And we'll check out IWM. Oh my god, so annoying. So big move up. Big bear day on Friday. And IWM is very similar to QQQ and SPY. And we can take a look at Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin is definitely an interesting one. I don't know how to feel about this one, because we have this range here. Let's get rid of this. We have this range from back here. This big sideways range. You see, I respected it, came back above, kept on trying to get over it. Failed. I finally did. Back test here, back test here, back test here. I'm trying to hold here. Bear break, lower high right off the valley area high. Back down, and you can see that we're kind of teetering at the valley area low now. Right, and of course you have structure here as well. But this is like the main structure, in my opinion. At least at this point. And for me, this is the range, the most important range on the daily. We have this push up. You have this huge leg down. And then we set the lower high here. We set the low. So as soon as we get the leg down, we know where the next significant swing level is. And it did qualify. Then same thing here. So this would be the range from here to here. So nothing changes in here. This is we're bearish for sure. There's only two ways that we can change from being bearish. Either we get back over here and create a change of character, or we get a lower low, and then we have the same thing, and then we'd move it down from here to here. It's the only way. And this is what I was talking about, where like this kind of gives you an idea of which way you should be, positioning, at least on the semi-short term, because we have a few things going on here. The first one is that we are underneath this important structure here, and we're clearly bearish. We clearly have our range, and here's a spot here where, like, you get this bounce, you get this higher low, higher high with the close above. You might be thinking, okay, I'm going to go bullish here. I'm looking to get to the 50-day. I'm looking to get up to here, which is something that I've definitely done before. And no dice. Same thing here, no dice. So for me, what this looks like right now is a rising wedge type deal. So here's your flagpole, and here's your flag. That's what it looks like right now to me. So it's looking pretty weak, because I think a lot of people want to get up to here. This is a very obvious level up here. There's a sideways range. There's a little bit of change of character there, yada yada. It's right smack in the middle of this range. But again, I think this little level right here is acting as resistance, and the bears are pushing price down, and we're already seeing exhaustion from bulls, which is pretty weak because we're already seeing it. Like I said, we're already seeing exhaustion from bulls. And the hard part here, in my opinion, is that you have to be patient because you could definitely get this little lower high and say I'm going to play off this lower, play off this level here, play the break, and then maybe you're looking for a leg down here, which is possible, but maybe a little less likely because we just had this huge bear move. So you got to be there's definitely a scalp in there or a day trade, but I guess you got to give it a little bit more time to marinate, which is the patience thing, right? Which is the game of patience, which is difficult because all the textbooks teach you, lower high off this level, try to get a lower low. And by no means was this like if you look at this move up, it was a bear flag. So it was more than a bear flag, but it was still like 50% less than 50%, maybe 46% of a move up. So you'd still think that it has enough gas to get down to the lower low. And you had this nice move down too. Nice big move down. So you're liking that increase in volume, and then you have the next day it just comes back up and punches right in the face. But it did go down to the golden pocket, which means less when it only bounces 40 something percent. So yeah. But you have to take the nuance of this game. Big move down. Are you expecting a lower low at that point? I guess it's possible. Yeah, so we have this lower high, higher low, technically a higher high with no follow through. Higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. I mean, this looks like an important level right here. But this is more so a pattern more than a concept. We clearly know this is the most important level. That's obvious. But, from a bull flag standpoint, it's higher highs and no follow through. So if we break the last lower high or higher low, so this would be the last higher low, higher high. So it's really is this level here. This is the level on Bitcoin, an important level. And there's still a chance we get, there could be another higher high with no follow through, and then we break down. This could just turn around and break down right away. We could also get a higher high, no follow through, higher low, and then get the bull break, the more unlikely scenario at this point based off the pattern, and then get into this and have this battle. But at least on Bitcoin, you have to be bearish on the daily. You just have to be bearish on daily. Weekly is intriguing. A lot of sideways, a lot of chop, a lot of chop. And on the hourly, we're clearly bearish on Bitcoin. You have this leg down, sideways, another leg down. So if you're looking bearish, I think Bitcoin makes some sense today. So we know, just from note standpoints, so bearish sectors for today: crypto, QQQ, and SPY, at least for today. And then bullish would be the Dow, XLF, XLV, and then obviously wheat stocks. Okay. So I've written down here UNH. I don't know what the spread's going to be like on UNH in the morning. But I do think there's a potential trade here. Obviously, UNH is a healthcare, which we just talked about how healthcare we could be looking slightly bullish. It's opening right at its prior day close, it looks like. It's slightly over the 50-day, which is a big deal. The only thing that I don't like is that it doesn't have a close underneath this level here. So you can see we have the big leg down after this rising wedge. Big time rising wedge. So let's see what this one actually did compared to Bitcoin, right? So you have higher low. So that's the range. Then you technically get a higher high, but still nothing. I mean, technically get a higher high. I didn't really get much follow through. So you get much follow through. This little lower high, like this is tricky here though, right? But for me, again, we're not sure this is a pattern yet. But when we get this higher low, this higher high here, the most important low is down here. Like this is not enough, in my opinion. It's this guy. So it goes from here to here. So this little guy is confusing, but he's not confusing enough. And technically, let's see, like if you do a fib pull here, it almost gets the golden pocket. Not quite, which could be telling, right? It utilizes the 50% level. But it kind of keeps you in line. You know what I mean? It keeps you in line. So you get this higher low. And then once again, you might say, oh, well, what the heck is that? Well, it's nothing. It's just bullshit price action. So you get this higher high. And then you say to yourself, what's going to happen on this day? Get some pullback here. You might say, all right, well, shoot. This is really setting up for that rising wedge, isn't it? And then what happens? You get the big pull down. And it's this level right here. And you can legit see that we not only broke that level here off on a gap down, but we did open, push up, we hit this little we filled the gap here, but back under. So when you fill the gap here and then get back under that level, that that's a pretty that makes things pretty easy, doesn't it? Bounce off the level here. All right, I'm gonna go short here because I think this is a descending wedge breaking bear, and I'm taking this one all the way down to I don't know this level here, the POC here. Yes, you do have to kind of hang on to this little lower high here. Didn't quite get to that level here. That could be definitely scary. Might have actually got me out of the trade right here, but and then there's your rising wedge. Using these levels, the levels that matter. See, instead of getting, oh well, maybe it's not a rising wedge, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Like that's what kept on happening to me. Definitely with patterns. So this cleans it up a lot. Which levels matter? But as we say, let's move on. And so we have this little push up here, and this would set the range. Let's close under here, but again, you have to close under the lower low, but you also have this, so it's like you got to be, this is where you have to be head on a swivel for sure. Then you have this little higher low, which I think less of. Um, but again, it is a bounce off of structure. So if you wanted to get on a little bit of a higher low, on this inside bar bull break on the hourly, this is actually double bottom, but you would want to be getting out around here. Like there, you wouldn't be able to get much more out of that in my opinion because this would be the swing high level. So for me, this level, I don't understand why. I don't know why that's not saving, but the other ones does. Anyways, but you see how we haven't closed under this level yet. So this is the only thing that scares me about this move is that we haven't closed over it. A close over this would give me a little bit more satisfaction. But again, this is the level. Like this is the level that changes things from bearish to bullish. Like you could be short-term bullish here because we bounced off of a big demand zone, got a nice bounce, and yet this little move of the higher low, higher high. That's fine. Um, this sweep is it should give you a little bit more confidence too because you have like this rinky dinky higher low, which I would have whatever fell for and got stopped out here. Um, at least in the past. But knowing that this is an important level, like you can look to go long off of this. Bear break, no follow through. Okay, I'm going long on this day. Makes sense. It does make sense because this structure is just where a lot of retail is, and they know that. So that's really where they're going to be taking that liquidity. But again, this is the range. This is your range. There's only one way to break. There's only two ways to break the range. Either a break above this level or a break below this level. And you could see that all this nonsense did nothing. So the bull's trying to take charge here, trying to break a level here, get a close. And I do think that we can get back up to this level here, or even to the 200 day. So you get a big candle today, you close above it, you have the change of character here on the daily finally, and then maybe you get a pullback, and then you start doing work. Because a lot of times after a change of character, there is a pullback. It is a little bit confusing though, in the sense I've read two different things of with the change of character, like the change of character and then there's a pullback. Um, you just don't want it to be a change of character and a pullback like pretty darn fast. I think what you'd much rather have is a bigger but move up, then you get a higher low off of this level, and then you also get the break and retest, right? Maybe you get like a nice, oval type of play here, just declining bull volume on the way down, bink, and already having to get in this liquidity sweep is a big deal. So potential play on UNH today, just an open and a quick pullback. Maybe try to go long here. I don't know what the liquidity is on this one in the morning, so it's going to be interesting. But it's definitely in the bull candidate, and I like that. See if there's any other health ones that are not already too gone. Why is my... There we go. I don't like the lag. But a lot of these names are just not really big movers. All right, let's check out RGTI. Bearish. CCJ is an interesting one. Because this is kind of what I was talking about before. Like, this was the low here. And you did have the break of it. This is definitely a change in character here. But the very next day, it closed back over. And then you could see that it used that level as support. This is almost like a deviation play, right? You have this little, the bottom here, you have this little lower low, no follow through, back over. There's your little deviation play. Like that's definitely a thing. And it did happen at that 80 mark, which I remember saying to myself, that's a huge level. So should have been paying more attention to that level. And now you can see that we're above the 50-day, and this is the range. Like, you can call this for what it is, a fake out, right? So you could still put that in the range. I'd still put it in the range, but I'd consider it a fake out. So now we're right smack in the middle of the range here with a bullish bias, right? Because, well, why wouldn't you? Because we're in a bullish uptrend. And now you have this little higher high, right? So you have this little pullback here. You set the low here. Tricky because you set the low here, and then you swipe that, and then you get the higher structure, and then they swipe that. So like they're not messing around on this bad boy. Double liquidity sweep. Um, and it doesn't mean we're just going to go up here, right? But if you have a bull bias, it's a spot here where if you see some strength out of this bad boy today, because I actually thought that it was going to have a nice move, yeah, on Friday. I didn't trade it because it really just right off the jump showed weakness. But a little bull, maybe like a bull break here with a back test of 96, looking to get to that $100 level. It's not a bad play. Might have to be a tomorrow play, but I think CCJ, which I believe is part of like the Dow and stuff. I need some water. BA is another one that I like. So BA is definitely daily a bullish, a bearish on a daily. There's no denying that. Then we have this big leg down. There was really no bottom set here. This is all just a huge leg down. So for me, like, do you have a double top here? This is the range. This is the range. So even though we're bearish here, it's a spot here where I do think that price can get up here. Um, but because I am overall bearish on it, I definitely like it less. We're in this tightening range here. I do think there is a lot going on here. I am worried of a bull break here into a pullback to fill this gap. Um, See, and some people might say, this is a daily high or low, and then there's your higher high. Just like that. All of this down, there's your daily high or low, higher high. It's like, and I guess technically you're not wrong, but, and like there's a change of character here too, which is a big deal. So this is the only thing that I'm trying to determine a little bit more from my standpoint is how much should I factor in these guys, right? Because this is definitely sideways range and then up, and then we have supply built here. There's definitely some supply built here. We have to move up and even back test the level here. So for me, it's like it's kind of like and this is I have to keep an eye on this and I have to take notes on this stuff. What I'm looking for here for future reference and even with back testing is that if I have a bigger picture daily bias, which is short here, but I do have the mechanics of, you know, a level being set, which is clearly double bottom here. There's clearly some demand being set there, a nice little level of demand being created or support, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's now once the period's a demand zone, but this is technically support being created. And then you get above this level here. This is very, very much so a sway of momentum. But is this enough to change my entire thesis? And I just don't know. I guess what I can say is the longer they hold above that level, the more likely we're to get up to this level. Have to be careful of a bull break into no follow through back down here. I would think that maybe we would see like a back test here, a gap fill, and then maybe back over. Like it can get that tricky, which is just gross. Or it could just be very simple. Maybe we could use the weekly to get another, an idea. So we had a leg down here. There was your top. Doesn't quite reach down there. Then there's another leg down here. I would still say that this is probably, no, I guess one. Yeah, I guess this is probably, I mean, all of this, I would still call it this. You get the crack above here. You get the back test of this level, which is a huge deal. Interesting that this POC is formed right at these highs here. Right, you get the bull break here. You get the big move up. You get the back test of that level right here. And then another leg up. So yeah, this was a big level right here. And you can see that we actually got, so this is bullish. Another higher high. This is just sideways, so it's not really setting a top here. But I'd have to say that this move down would probably convince me to say this is the top. Hmm. I don't think this would qualify as a top being set. I think this actually might just be one move up. With this being like a very key level, very important key level. Then you get the bear brick of that level right here. And then since that day, we've done nothing but go back up, which now makes me start to think that it's a sweep. So weekly bullish helps. I mean it's tough to say because I mean I you could also say that if you want to say this is an important level, but again, like this level is the high here, and I would say I would just take all of this in. Like all of this would be, because I like using zones, not points. But like from the highest close to the wick up here, you know, and then this is definitely an important guy too. Right here, this is where, in my opinion, people are going to be looking for shorts if they are saying this is a change of character. It's very, I find it very hard to recognize um prior POC. I find it very hard to recognize some of the sweeps when it's not just a wick. So now we can the dailies, the weekly is tough. The weekly is tough because this was an important level. We're back over it, but this I think this is the low. So from a technical standpoint, this is a not even a golden pocket pullback, but that looks like more like a monthly thing, doesn't it? Yeah, see, like that ends up looking like the monthly, which I guess is not the end of the world. But you get the lower low and you break this level, which creates this is the new low, and then the high just needs to be set, and this just doesn't qualify. This is like one push down candle. It does back test and hold this level, which is a clean break and retest, which gives this level strength, but it doesn't give the structure. So we have one, two, we have a triple inside bar bull break with no follow through. Then we have a bear break, no follow through. So it's just choppy here. And we know this is an important node level for sure. And we know on the daily, this is an important level here. This big leg down. So it just really depends on which time frame is more important to you, I guess. It's a little tricky though, isn't it? This is a very tricky chart. I'd like to see what happens to it. All right. Well, that's what I'm going to be looking for today. I wanted to jump on and do a little bit more prep. So I'm going to call it and continue to look. And I hope you have a good trading day.